The Pope and Young Club wants to welcome you as we rally together to ensure our bow hunting opportunities for today and tomorrow. You've come to the podcast that believes in preserving, protecting, and promoting the passion for bow hunting. Join us as we strive to be the voice of today's bow hunter. This is the Pope and Young Podcast. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Pope and Young Podcast. I am not joined, as always, by my co-host, Tim Rzuski. Tim is tied up trying to get everything ready for a measuring course that we have going on next weekend at the Weber County Archery Park in Ogden, Utah. And so he couldn't join us today, but I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. John Bair. John, how are you, man?
I'm doing good, brother. How are you?
You know, much like Tim, running around trying to get stuff ready for this Ogden event. Excited to have you come down and do some auctioning for us. We got some great auction items. So if you're in the Ogden area, I would highly encourage you to come and join us for the night. And if you're not, don't worry, you can bid online. John will let you bid online. So get registered to bid online. We've got some phenomenal hunts. We've got some great products. And so make sure and get registered to bid online if you can't be there. So John, how is
so excited, man. I'm so excited to be part of that event this year. I'm glad it worked out schedule wise so that we could be there.
Yeah, man. We always love having you. Which is kind of what I want to talk about, dude. How in the world, what made you think, yeah, I want to be an auctioneer? Like, that's what I want to do.
Well, so, I think I've been doing it about 25 years, maybe. And I was at a sportsman's banquet, and we hired a guy that I knew a little bit to come be the auctioneer. And I thought, and he did all right, but I thought, I bet I could do better than that. I bet I could do that. And I grew up on a sheep ranch, and we went to the cattle auction, the sheep auction, the horse auction all the time. So, going to auctions is always something I thought was really cool. And so I thought, I bet I could do that. And I went home and told my wife at the time, hey, I want to go to auction school. And she just kind of looked at me and was like, of course, why wouldn't you get something else to do? We're not busy, She was pretty supportive, and I called my parents and says, hey, I want to go to auctioneer school. My mom goes, oh, honey, you talk way too slow. You talk way too slow. And my dad actually called me back about an hour later and said, hey, if you find an auction school you want to go to, I'll go with you. And so
Really?
me and my dad went back to Mankato, Minnesota. And it was, it's been dang near 25 years now. And auction school is about 8 or 9 days long. And it was all day and just go and practice. And by about the end of the second day, they took us to a real auction in some old barn. There was a bunch of flat wagon hay racks there with a bunch of stuff, kind of an old estate sale. The guy putting on the class or the school grabbed me and walked up there and says, get up there and sell. And I looked at him and said, man, you're out of your mind. I've been doing this for a few hours. He says, get up there and do it. So I got up there and they handed me an old broken cake plate. I sold it for $1. They handed me an old broken fish tank. And finally, I couldn't get anybody to bid on that thing. It was junk. And finally, the guy putting on the class bid $1 on it to get me off the stage. So that's how I got going. And I think the first year I did 2 or 3 little events. The next year I did probably 10, and now I'm up to between 50 and 60 events a year. And most all those events are from the 1st of January, the first of the year, till about June is when I fit most of those in. So it's a pretty busy time. And I'm still I got a 9 to 5. I'm an electrician for the state. And so it's a busy time of year, but that's how it all got going.
I've oftentimes wondered, what in the heck do you do at auction school? Like, do you go to like count fast class? Like what?
Yeah, well, yeah, actually. So I got online and looked around, and there's actually quite a few auction schools, and most of them are like 3 weeks long. Well, I didn't have 3 weeks I could take off work, so I found this one in Minnesota that started Monday morning, and I think it ended like the next Monday night. And so I thought, well, I could probably do that. And as soon as I signed up for the school, talked to the guy on the phone, he sent me a big package of materials. He says, you need to learn this, and if you have questions, call me. And it was just a bunch of number scales and tongue twisters. And, auctioneers, everybody thinks is somebody talking fast, and that is, kind of a part of it. But you got to know your numbers. You got to be able to count by, quarters and halves and ones and two and a halves and fives and tens and 50s and all that. And so you just practice your numbers forward and back and forward and back. And then you start mixing in what they call filler words. And that's what makes it sound like you're going really fast, is the words that you tie the numbers together with. And,
Gotcha.
I use a lot of filler words like dollar and bid, now, and just, everybody has a little bit different auction chant, but you kind of learn the words that work for you and how you can tie it together. And
Yeah.
after that, just a lot of practice.
So did you go into this thinking and hey, you might be one of those guys that's super humble and doesn't even consider yourself this still today, but did you go into this thinking like I could be one of the premier auctioneers in the outdoor conservation space?
Not even once. And not even once. I thought it'd be fun to work with maybe a few of the local groups, and I just wanted to learn how to do it. And, I thought, no, like there's a lot of 4-H auctions around here, and I could probably help them out. And I just kind of wanted to learn how to do it. And, if you'd ever told me that I was going to stand on the stage with some of the auctioneers that I've had the privilege of working with, I've worked with several guys at the different events and that are world champion cattle auctioneers and auto auctioneers, and just, the absolute best of the best of the best. And they're just as polished and as professional as you can possibly be. Every year in Reno, I have the chance to work with a couple really good auctioneers, Les Olhauser and Keith Dinwoody. And Keith is a world champion cattle auctioneer. He is probably the most polished and technically perfect auctioneer I've ever dealt with. And if you ever would have told me that I was going to stand on the stage and work with guys like that, I never would have believed it. I never thought how that could be possible. Now, a lot of it is who you know and people that you know and that give you opportunities. And I'm very grateful that I've had the chance to work with so many great organizations and, sell some of the things I've been able to sell. I sold the Arizona auction permits are kind of hot in the news right now because Arizona decided they didn't want to play that game anymore. And, a couple days ago, I look and there's on Field and Stream's Instagram page, there's a picture of me standing on stage at the Western Hunt Expo selling the Arizona tag for $725,000. And it's kind of
Yeah.
funny. Your buddies screenshot that and send it to you and give you a bunch of crap. And the difference between me selling those kind of things and the guy, around here doing estate sales, and that is really just kind of what we got into. And I was lucky enough to have some good friends that helped make the right connections for me. And, those guys that are down at the horse sale and at the cattle auction and at the car sale, those guys are every bit as good auctioneers as I am, if not technically better. And, but my niche is kind of getting to sell permits and sell to huge crowds of hunters and stuff. And I'd be lying if I didn't say it was a lot of fun, because it is. And, I think I have the funnest niche in the outdoor industry, because I get to stand up on stage and look out at those crowds and, you see who's bidding. And there's all kinds of people that we consider in the outdoor world, celebrities sitting all over out there. And, people ask me, geez, what's it like to get up in front of all those people? And well, they put together the biggest events in the world. They get all the big players together, all the big money guys. They get all the big tags. They work all year to get donations, amazing stuff, from outfitters, brown bear hunts and stone sheep hunts and just all kinds of stuff that everybody just dreams of doing. They get all this stuff together, and then they hand you the microphone and say, all right, we want you to get up there. We want you to keep them entertained. We want you to make it fun so they come back next year, and we want you to milk every penny you can out of them. And while you're doing it, don't get us sued. And so, it's there's a little pressure to it, but it's also, like I say, it's really, really fun. I love it.
So, man, what does oh my gosh, just being in that room, when something auctions for $725,000, it's so unreal. Just the experience and the atmosphere and just that sense of conservation and camaraderie and the feel good of we're doing something special here. What's it like being the guy leading that charge? Like, what goes through your mind as that number starts getting up there?
Well, there's a couple things. First off, I mean, you're as excited as anybody else in there. Like when those numbers on some of those permits start to get really high like that, you're like, I mean, because you're keeping track in your head, like, all right, here's the record for this tag. Here's the record, the highest thing I've ever sold, and you always want to beat those numbers.
Yeah.
You always want to beat those numbers. And when we sold the tag for 725, the night before we'd set the record with the Antelope Island tag at 500,000. And so, I never thought we'd break that again. I mean, that was just so far above anything else I'd ever done. I couldn't believe it. And then when the very next night, I mean, we blew by 500 like it was nothing. And so there's a couple things you got to do. You got to know that when you're dealing with people that have that kind of money to spend, you don't screw around with those kind of people because they're used to big money deals, obviously, and you got to be professional with them. You got to really make sure that when you sell it, that you've ironed out all the wrinkles and that everybody's on the same page. Because, once you say sold, you can't go backwards. It's once you say sold, it's sold. You got to make sure everybody's with you, that they know, all right, he's going to sell it. And if somebody else is like dragging their feet, you got to let them know, hey, I'm going to sell it. You're running out of time. And also, while you're doing that, you're trying to kind of stoke the excitement in the room, because it is very exciting, all while you make sure, okay, I'm on the right number. I'm pointing at the right guy. He knows he's in. The second, the runner-up bidder knows he's out. And I got all my ducks in a row. And then, you can sell it. So there's a little pressure to it, but it's also, it's amazing to see people like that step up. And of course there's always critics, and that's the part that isn't always as fun, is I've had guys after I sold that tag for 725, guys that I kind of looked up to a little bit in the industry, they get on their podcast and they, oh, it's a rich man's game now, da 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 da. First off, I totally disagree with that, because if you take $725,000 and then figure out how much is a non-resident deer tag in Arizona, how many of those deer tags would you have to add to Arizona to make up that money that you could put into conservation? I mean, it's thousands and thousands of deer tags. So I'm glad those guys are willing to step up. I'm glad that they're willing to put that kind of money into hunting, because there's a lot of people that donate that kind of money to PETA and the Humane Society and everybody that despises what we do. So, there's a lot that goes through your mind, and you kind of get used to, everybody thinks, well, you're talking that fast, you got to be laser focused on what you're saying. Well, the talking fast I get used to that. I don't really think about that anymore. What I do think about is, holy cow, we're breaking the record. This guy's in, this guy's out. I can't believe somebody's going to spend almost $750,000 on a deer tag and that Arizona's going to get all that money to, put into their deer program. And it's, it's a pretty cool thing to be part of.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I love that argument of it's a rich man's game and you're killing hunting because you're selling these tags for this much money and no wonder I can't afford to hunt. No wonder. Do you guys, I mean, they don't get that that one tag is not determining what the tags sell for from now on. You know,
Yep.
what they're finding hard to wrap their head around is that if we don't make that $750,000, where else is it going to come from? You know?
Well, we here in Utah, we sell a lot of tags, and all that money goes back onto the ground. There's a formula set up, and all that money is spent on the ground ready to go, or those projects are lined up ready to go by the time we sell the permits.
Yeah.
And, there's a way that the projects get approved through the Habitat Council. And I mean, the program gets audited every year. And, so when people say, oh, it's a rich man's game and $725,000 is ruining it for everybody else. Well, how many of us have saved up money and went on a $10,000 hunt or a $20,000 hunt?
Right.
And you don't have to get very expensive before I start thinking, well, I can't afford that any more than I can afford 750. So for 725 or 500 or 100. So if we're going to take those tags, and this is just my opinion, if we're going to take those tags and we're going to sacrifice them to the conservation gods or to the money gods or whatever we're going to do, however you look at it, we owe it to everybody involved. The guy that can't afford that permit, to my kids that are coming up that I hope one day get a chance to hunt big deer, to everybody involved, we owe it to everybody to get as absolute much money out of that tag as humanly possible to put back into wildlife. If if somebody feels better about it because I only sell it for $30,000, well, that's kind of counterproductive. Let's just, I can raise $30,000 selling raffle tickets for the tag. So
Yeah.
what's the point? We owe it to everybody involved to get maximum dollars for those permits that we decide we're going to auction. And, I'm yet to hear an argument that I thought deep down wasn't 100% spurred by probably a little bit of jealousy that somebody else can afford something that I can't.
Yeah.
And you know what? I wish I could afford that much money on a tag. I don't think I'd spend that much money on a tag, even if I could. I mean, I don't know, because that world's just so foreign to me to have that kind of money. But I'm very glad that those guys are willing to do it. I think it's a great program. I think the money, is, well, I've been very, very involved in our program here in Utah. And we have a lot of critics about how we do things here in Utah, but I'll tell you this. We do more caller studies. We do more habitat work than the rest of the country put together, basically, and it's all funded by those permits. So,
That's another thing.
That's okay, but I'm a fan.
That's another thing that a lot of people don't get. They watch those tags and it is, it's a hard thing to understand. It's a hard thing. You got to have somebody tell you. It's not just going to come to you, but a lot of those people think that, you're putting money into Pope and Young's pocket or into Wild Sheep Foundation's pocket or into Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation's pocket or, you name it. Those
Yep.
tags are, and you could probably better share this than I, but those tags are set up to where that money goes straight to the state that the governor's tag was given from. That tag, yeah, Western or sheep or Pope and Young might get 2.5%, but that money goes straight back into conservation directly for the state that it was donated from. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think that a lot of people don't get that. Like you're not making Pope and Young rich. You're not making Wild Sheep Foundation rich. Those tags are strictly giving money to conservation.
Most of the states, their governor's tags. I know Arizona for a fact, 100% of that 725 went right back to
Yeah.
the state. Utah, our conservation permits, 90% of it ends up, it's all written out. The organization has a say on how a big chunk of that money is spent, but it has to be spent on state approved, Habitat Council approved conservation projects. A portion of it goes straight back to the state. The group gets to keep a portion of it in their account that they get to direct on habitat projects that have been approved by the state, but they still get to say, okay, we're really into, the Mule Deer Foundation. We're really into mule deer. We want all this money to go to mule deer projects that heavily favor mule deer. And then the organization gets to keep 10% of the money to use on projects that the state doesn't have to approve. They can use that on whatever they want. And so, but like Montana, I sold the Montana, for a long time, the highest selling tag I'd ever sold was the Montana governor's tag for bighorn sheep at $480,000. And that was probably 10 or 12 years ago. And I mean, that was just insane money. Still is, but at that time, it was unheard of. And 100% of that money goes back to the state of Montana to fund their bighorn sheep program. And so the programs are all a little different in different states. I don't know of any state where the organization gets to direct more than 10% without state oversight. So and here in Utah, that program gets audited. You get audited to make sure you're keeping track of the money, that you're turning it in on time, that they send people, the division sends employees to the auctions. There's a division employee at every one of the auctions I do to make sure that when these organizations call and say, hey, I sold the Wasatch Elk tag for $20,000 and the Uinta Mountains, moose tag for $40,000, that when they turn in the money, that it matches what was done at the auction. They have employees there to make sure everything is on the up and up. It gets audited every year. And so do I have any concerns that the money's not being used correctly or honorably for conservation? There's not 1 ounce of me that thinks any of that money's getting wasted or not put back towards conservation. And, I deal with critics about that all the time. They don't like it. Some people just don't like it. That's fine. But I know where the money goes. I mean, you can't drive around Utah anywhere and not see chaining projects, reseeding projects. You see deer and elk all over the place with collars on them. We're doing collar studies here on lions, on black bears, on bison, moose, elk, deer, all the sheep species that we have here, mountain goats. I mean, we got more collars out than you could count. I think that biologist told me the other day that we had almost 12,000 collars out. They're putting them on fawns now. They'll put an implant in a pregnant doe. As soon as she drops her fawn, it sends a signal to the satellite. They get a notification. They run out, catch the fawn, put a collar on it, and they can track that fawn. If they get a mortality signal, within a day and a half, they get out to see what caused the mortality of the fawn. And we are just getting incredible amounts of useful data to help us better manage these animals. And it is all coming from conservation permit money, all coming from auction tags. So if you don't like it because you're jealous, I mean, I'm fine. That's their opinion. That's okay. But for me personally, it feels pretty good to be part of something that's helping achieve those kind of things.
Oh, absolutely. So what do you say to the guy? They really want to help. They really want to, because it really, John, it's hard to go to these auctions. It's hard to sit there and you think, God, man, I would love to help, but crap, dude, my house costs $100,000. Like, I
Well,
mean,
let me tell you, I know where you're going. Okay. I know where you're going with this. And let me tell you kind of how I got involved. And you're going to recognize 1 or 2 of these guys' names. Okay. When I got married when I was in my early 20s. I lived in a little farm town down in central Utah. I moved up to Orem, Utah, and I ran into a guy playing basketball over at the church one night who had a camouflage coat on, and got talking to him. And I said, "You hunt?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I hunt a lot." And I'm like, "Well, what do you hunt?" And he says, "Well, I just drew an archery antelope tag out on the San Rafael unit." And I'm like, "People hunt antelope with a bow? You're out of your mind." He goes, "Not only that, I'm hunting it with my recurve." And I thought, well, why don't you just throw rocks at him, dude? I mean, you got just as good a chance. I mean, it was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. And this guy turned into one of my lifelong best friends. His name's Kevin Jensen. He's one of the best recurve barebow shooters in the country. He's one of the best in Colorado last year. I mean, he was just back east shooting. I mean, he is as lethal with a recurve bow as, a lot of guys are with their compound. And he is just an absolute shooter. And he got me interested in archery. We went down to Jake's Archery here in Orem, Utah, that Jake Jacobson ran. And I walked in there, and the guy working behind the counter started showing me some bows. And when I left, I shook his hand, asked him his name. His name is Dallas Smith. And of course, we both know Dallas. And, this was 30 years ago. And Dallas sold me a bow and helped me set it up. And I'd go in there and shoot. I work not too far from there, and I go in there and shoot. And Dallas got me involved in the archery club. And then one night, Kevin says, "Hey, let's run down to the RAC meeting." I'm like, "What's a RAC meeting?" Regional Advisory Council. Dallas sits on the Central Region Regional Advisory Council. And it's where they decide for the Central Region what recommendations they want to make as far as deer hunting regulations and permit numbers and all that stuff. And I'm like, wow. So we went down and went to that meeting, and Dallas started taking me with him to a lot of those meetings around the state. And I mean, I just got really obsessed with it, and I couldn't believe that the public could have input. And you could go to these meetings, you could speak up, you could give your opinion. And I was just learning so much about how the process ran. Well, it was probably the term on those committees is 8 years, 2 4-year terms. And Dallas had just got put on that committee. And when Dallas served the last couple of years of his term, I was the newest guy that got appointed on that RAC. So I served 8 years on that RAC, and then the governor ended up appointing me to the wildlife board. Many states have a commission, like their wildlife commission, that passes the rules and makes all the big decisions. Utah has a board, which is basically the same thing. And the governor appointed me to the wildlife board. I served on there for 6 years, and I was the chairman of the board the last 2 years. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life to serve in those capacities and to learn how things work, to be able to stand up for hunting. And I mean, it's not all, peaches and butterflies. There's some times where you get in some real contentious conversations, and you have to make some decisions about, how are we going to run this season, or what are going to be the dates on that season, and how many tags are we going to put in this unit? And usually half the people walk out of the meeting mad, and you got to be okay with that. Just do the best you can. And so Dallas and Kevin, through archery, through taking me to the archery shop and showing me, teaching me how to shoot, getting me involved in the archery club, got me involved in the RAC committee, in the Utah Wildlife Board, and also in that process got me involved with some sportsmen's organizations that I'm still heavily involved with. And that's actually what got me into auctioneering. And I've never bought a big tag. I've never paid $100,000 for a tag. If I want to go on any kind of a hunt that costs more than $1,500, I got to save for a couple of years, to make that work out. So kind of get back to your original question. If how do people get involved? You can go to one of these banquets, to, the Pope and Young banquet coming up, the Bowhunter Bash up in Ogden here coming up. You go there, you talk to your biologist, you talk to the local guys, and there's always a project going on. There's always an event going on that you can get involved with. You can call your biologist and just ask them, hey, what's going on? How can I help? How can I be more involved? These are my concerns. And it's amazing all the different avenues there are for the public to get involved, to make a difference, to help on habitat projects, to help on fencing projects, to serve on committees. There's our Utah Mule Deer Management Committee is going on right now, and it's probably 20 or 25 people from every interest group in the state, from just at-large sportsmen to ag people that are involved in the industry, whether it's an archery shop or a hunting store, biologists from the Division of Wildlife are all involved. And, you can get involved in that stuff. You don't have to have a lot of money to get involved. Just if you start going to events, talking to your biologist, talking to the guys in the archery shop where you go shoot, and you look for a chance to get involved, there is always somebody that needs help. And if that's what you're after and you put out a few feelers, you'll find your niche.
Well, and it's something that I never even understood, like how big the need was for, you talk about these projects, and there's a lot of need for hands-on help. Like not even money help, just, hey, we're putting in a new guzzler and we need hands-on help from people, can you give us Saturday to come help us, put in this new guzzler? And people just, there's so many of those projects where they're begging for help. And, we look at it, and sure, that's not the glamorous work of like, dude, I gave $750,000 to wild sheep, but there's so many people, if you look at doing a sheep collaring, if you look at, Pope and Young just recently, we went in and collared a bunch of sheep. If you look at that, we need help. We need 15 guys on site that day, just to help us.
Yep. Yep.
Not give us any money, but we're talking, give us a Saturday to help us get these sheep out, put collars on them, let them go, make sure all this stuff goes smoothly. There's so much work that can be done that you can feel good about, that you can know, man, I'm making a real difference here because I literally helped with my own two hands put sheep back on the mountain today. And it doesn't have to be a big money donation. But and you mentioned the Bowhunter Bash. It's a great example because it's a cheap ticket to come and enjoy a great dinner. You're paying for a phenomenal dinner, but in doing that, people don't understand, how much dinner tickets add up to help with conservation, and how all of
Oh,
that money that's
absolutely.
raised just just by you coming to dinner is supporting conservation. Just by you bidding on a silent auction item or buying a couple raffle tickets, just by you doing those little things, if everybody were to do a couple little things and not buy into that lie of like, well, I can't do anything big. Well, what am I going to do? I make $30,000 a year. Well, even if you give 10 bucks, 20 bucks, if everybody would start saying, you know what, I can do a little bit, man, that would change the world forever. I mean, when it comes to conservation and our conservation efforts.
Well, what good does it do to raise, $100,000 at an event if you don't have the hands and the help to go out and put that money on the ground? That's raising the money is only half the battle. You got to have the help, like you said, to go out, to help catch the sheep, to help build the fence, to help plant the sagebrush or the bitter brush. And some people have money they can donate. Some people have time. Some people have a business where they can, donate a tractor to go help put in a guzzler. And
Yeah.
whatever you have, the whole wheel don't rotate without every spoke working together, and the hands-on, the time, the people working to, volunteer to help put on the banquets or the projects, coordinate the projects. That's all just as important as the guy writing the big check. Now, the guy writing the big check, is the one that makes the news and either gets the love or gets the hate and gets the picture, with the big whatever. Uh, None of it works without the rest of the equation, though, and it's absolutely just as important. And you think about it, we talk about all these things that we do, and I mentioned Dallas and Kevin, and those guys are now some of my greatest, best, and oldest friends. I've been friends with those guys longer than I've been friends with anybody else. Another good friend of mine, Big Al Morris, that he's a well known in the coyote hunting world. I met him in an archery shop. I met my wife, Ganna, at the Hunt Expo 10 years ago. And it's this outdoor world and this conservation world, it's way more than just raising money or putting in a guzzler or something. We do it because we love wildlife. But why do we love wildlife? Why do we love the outdoors? I think a huge part of it that maybe goes unsaid is because the absolutely amazing people and the connections and the friendships that come from all of this. I mean, I was thinking when I was getting ready to hop on the call with you, I was at the Wild Sheep Week, and it's probably been 7 or 8 years ago in Reno, and they had me do a coyote calling seminar. And I'm standing up on stage and talking about, and that's kind of my thing. I love to hunt coyotes. I'd rather hunt coyotes than anything. And I was standing up there and I was talking, and I thought, man, that guy in the front row sure looks familiar. And I look at his badge, and it's Jack Frost sitting right there in the front row in my seminar. And I'm thinking, holy cow, what could I ever say that this guy doesn't already know?
Oh,
I mean, you want to talk legend, Jack freaking Frost. And then a couple minutes later, partway into the seminar, Bob Folkrod comes in and sits down right behind him.
oh my gosh.
And I'm like, I kind of vapor lock. Usually I'm pretty good on the microphone. Being an auctioneer, if you can stand up and make a fool of yourself and not vapor lock on the microphone, that you got it licked. That's the hardest part. But both those guys walk in and sit down. And after I went up and talked to Jack for a few minutes, and he's, been in the military for years and years. And I got a boy that is recently in the military. And so I've talked to him about that a few times since that. But that first conversation I had with Jack, and he just shook my hand, good job. And yeah, I've never been a big coyote hunter, but I thought he'd come in and see if I couldn't learn something. And he's just the nicest guy. And I think about that all the time. Jack Frost came to my seminar. And, so we do what we do for wildlife. We do what we do for conservation. But deep down, as important as any of it, we do this because of the important people in our life and to pass this on to the next generation of important people in our life. If I didn't think my grandson or my granddaughter or my boy or my nephews were going to be able to hunt, what are we doing? Why are we doing it?
It's true,
So,
man. Now, that's something too that, like, you look at these big conservation groups and you look at these groups that are full of legendary hunters. And man, I remember the first time where I had to go to a Pope and Young convention, and I remember like being a little bit just not nervous, but almost that sense of overwhelmingness, like because you're going into a room with Jack Frost and Chuck Adams and, Michael Waddell. And I mean, Lord, we could keep going on and on, Remy Warren and Tom Miranda. And you're like, dude, what? why am I here? Like you you're amongst all of these incredible dudes. Like, why am I here? And then I remember my first convention and I was sitting down at a lunch, and just as soon as Jack Frost saw me, just as soon as I sat down, well, hey, what was your last hunt like? And I'm like, oh, I shot a doe in Kansas or whatever. I shot some coyotes in Oklahoma, and they're genuinely just as excited to hear about the doe that you shot or the ducks that you shot or the coyotes that you shot as they are to share with you their story of their new world record. They're genuinely excited to hear what you have to say. And it's like, man, this community is so full of just phenomenal guys. And you don't get to that, in my opinion, you don't get to that stature. You don't make it long in this industry if you're a douche. Like, you just don't. Because it's a small
Well,
industry. Word gets around, man. Those guys that have been there and have done it forever and have done it really well, dude, they're legendary for a reason. And they are the nicest, most genuine guys ever. So I would highly encourage everybody to get involved with a group.
absolutely. And all those guys you mentioned, I've went and sat down and had lunch with guys that I looked at them and I'm like, I will never, ever, ever be the caliber of hunter that they are. And that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
if we all hunted like some of those guys you mentioned, there wouldn't be much left. I'm really good friends with Brennan Burns. And, Brennan's the only guy I know that's probably got 6,000 plus Instagram followers and never posted one picture. And I asked him, why don't you ever post your pictures? And he said, well, to me, social media, you're either trying to rub it in somebody's face or brag. I don't want to do that. So I share my pictures with people I want, and that's just how I do it. And he is an absolute killer. And he doesn't have, it doesn't do anything for him professionally or anything, to be buddies with me. He's just buddies with me because we're buddies. And he's nice to me because that's
So
how
he
he is.
is.
With Dallas,
Yeah.
with with Dallas, I was a punk kid that knew absolutely nothing. And Dallas was so good to me and helped me. I mean, he's helped me move. He's helped me roof my house. He's helped me fix my truck when it broke down. He took me on, a couple archery hunts down to Arizona and taught me how to hunt, taught me how to tune broadheads. And I mean, he didn't have anything to gain, money wise or business wise or anything. I didn't have anything to offer him other than he was just a nice guy and was just willing to be my friend. And, the one who I've really learned a lot about this from is my wife, Jana Waller. And when we got married here last year, everybody asked her, are you going to change your name to Jana Bair? And I said, well, we're talking about it. But I said, all my buddies at work are already calling me Johnny Waller. So I think we know how that's going to go. So kind of joke about that a little bit. But, I walk around with Jana and you cannot go anywhere with her and people are coming up and wanting pictures. And so often kids, especially little girls, are coming up and wanting to show her a picture of the turkey they killed or the fish they caught, or, that they wrote a paper in school about hunting or that they decorated a skull like she does. And every single time she takes time, and there's a lot of times where we're in a hurry, but you would never know it the way she treats those kids. And they're not all kids, but a lot of them are. And she takes pictures with them and she looks at their pictures and tells them how amazing it is and how proud she is of them and how she appreciates them coming up to talk to her. And if she just does it because she's a good person. And I think that's one thing, the greatest blessing of this whole big hunting world, this conservation world, however you look at it, to me, aside from the fact that, we all love to hunt, I believe in what we're doing 100%. I love, being part of the process. I think I have the luckiest, coolest little niche in the whole system. I feel very blessed to have the opportunities I've had to be part of all this. But the most important thing and what I value the most is the relationships with the amazing people that are in this as well. And I
Yeah.
mean, the list is long. The list is incredibly long, and it grows every year. And there's guys I used to see on the mountain. I'd run into them on the mountain during deer camp, and they'd be camped down the road, and you'd run into them every year, and you look forward to seeing them and seeing how they did. And then once in a while, you'd run into one of them in town, and you didn't recognize them because they weren't wearing camo. They had on a tie and business clothes, and you'd be like, I know you, but who the heck are you? Like, dude, I
Yeah.
ran into you on the mountain last year, and it's just, the relationships that come through this world of hunting are, to me, one of the best things about it.
For sure. Absolutely it is. And that's what, you say that, and I remember one time, me and my wife had been married a real short time, and I didn't take her on a lot of hunts with me. She's not an outdoorsman. She's not legit like Jana. She's a yuppie, like straight up a yuppie, dude. And so she didn't come on a lot of hunts with me. But I remember I had booked a hunt, and it was my first ever guided hunt. Well, I'm sorry, it was the first ever guided hunt that I was like that I had really invested in, if you will. And it was a bear hunt in Maine. And I was like, babe, you've always wanted to see, the East Coast. You've always wanted to do the lighthouse tours. You've always wanted to see Niagara. You've always wanted to see, Salem witch trials. And like, we can do all that on the way up. Like, we'll vacation on the way up, we'll hunt, then we'll come back. We have a cabin to stay in, and, the North Maine woods is going to be incredible. And we get up there, and the cabins were not what my precious little wife wants to stay in. I mean, they are garbage. You think you're gonna fall through the floor the whole time, and there's an outhouse. There's no bathroom, so you got to go shower in the outhouse and use the bathroom in the outhouse. And there's just a bunch of roughneck bear hunters around camp, and bear hunters are a different breed, especially these guys. And I look over at her and I just say, "I'm so sorry. Like I'm sorry." I said, "But I promise you, by the end of this week, like, you're gonna love every single one of these dudes." And she looks over, and like there's a fat old man on the front porch, like scratching his belly with a beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other. And she's like, "Yeah, I bet I will. Like, I can't believe you brought me here." And I'm like, "I
Oh,
promise,
that's funny.
baby, I promise." And there was a couple other wives in camp, and to this day, she still is Facebook friends and keeps up with those other women in camp. And like, we leave and she's like hugging everybody by. And, I just, it's hard for a non hunter to really truly wrap their head around the camaraderie that is in a hunt camp, or the camaraderie just amongst hunters. And, to this day, she now knows like why some of these guys I go on hunts with once a year. I don't see them often at all, but I go on hunts with them once a year. Why I consider them my best friends. And so you're
Absolutely.
absolutely right, man. This community is one that, oh, I don't know how you would not want to belong to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's and with talking about wives and that, I can talk about my ex-wife because her and Jana are really good friends, and they get along great. And my ex-wife, she was kind of raised in the city and wasn't really into hunting, and she always looked at me like, I don't get it, but kudos to you, and she always was supportive. And then after me and Jana got dating and got married, it was like 180 degrees. It was like, all right, dude, listen, here's what we're doing. We're going here, we're hunting this, we're climbing this mountain, and be ready to go at 5 in the morning. And I was like, no problem. Well, if I'm going to tell you, if you think you can keep up with Jana, you better eat your Wheaties, man. You better eat your Wheaties. And even my ex-wife tells me now, she says, it's so funny to see somebody that I know is just walking you into the ground. And, Jana had a mountain goat tag here in Utah last year, and we hunted that thing for 17 days. And I was never in my life so glad to hear a gun go off. And the first thing I told her, you can see it on her episode, I says, I cannot wait to go back to work so I can get some rest because you have dang near killed me off on this hunt. And I mean, she just goes and goes and goes, and we were doing an auction the other night for the Utah Wild Sheep Banquet. And I asked everybody in there, I says, we're talking about bear hunters. That's Jana's absolutely favorite thing to do. And I says, how many people in here have killed 17 or more bears? Jana's killed 17. My buddy Shad Piper, who I think has killed a couple more than that, and there was one other guy that had killed more than that out of a room of 600 people. Jana had killed, within 2 or 3 of the most bears. And I says, how many guys in here are married to a woman that has more or a bigger gun collection than you do? And one other guy. And I'm like, that's the kind of elite club that I am in. That I'm married to a gal that's killed more bears than most people will ever see in their life. She's got way more guns and hunting toys than I'll ever have. And, and I got to I tell her all the time, and I got to try to keep up with that. I tell her I'm her third string cameraman. Her number one cameraman is Heath Helgert. He lives up in Montana, and he's just he's a magician with a camera, and he just does a super job. And I tell her he's the first string cameraman or second string cameraman is anybody else she can possibly get to do it. And when she can't get anybody else to do it, she goes third string, and that's me. And, but she's had through her TV show, she's had the opportunity to take, and she really loves the military world and veterans. She's taken double amputees, triple amputees, guys that had absolutely no legs that their buddy had to put them on a pack and carry them up the mountain, guys that were scooting up the mountain with, just their hands on their nubs, with plates on the bottom of what they had left of their legs to get up the mountain. And she has friends in every branch of the military, Medal of Honor recipients, Silver Stars, Bronze Stars with Valor, lots of Purple Heart recipients, Air Force Cross recipients that she has been able to take hunting. And it's just unbelievable the friendships they make and how hunting, a lot of them are really into archery. Some are, into rifles. Some of them shoot crossbows because of their physical limitations and that. But the therapy that the outdoor community and hunting provides so many people, especially in the veteran community, it is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, it's just unreal. And you don't have to look very far in the hunting world, whether it's, the archery world that we love so much, the conservation side of it, raising money, whatever you're doing, you don't have to look very far before you see somebody that through their kindness has helped somebody else and helped lift them up. And that hunting is that common thread that runs through all of it, that ties us all together. It doesn't matter if you're an accountant, if you're a mouthy auctioneer that spends too much time on the microphone, or if you're, a farmer or whatever you do, that thread that runs through all of us that is hunting really does tie together, tie together the most amazing community in the world, I think.
Yeah, for sure. You're absolutely right, man. So before I dive into a couple of the auction items that we're excited about auctioning off this next Saturday, April 6th, what has been that number one, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like one that raised the most money or but what's been that coolest item that you've ever had the chance to auction off?
Oh, buddy, there's a couple of them. And they're not hunts. They're not guns. Well, let me back up. A couple of them were guns, and a couple of them were other things that were donated. One year, it's been quite a few years ago, we had a friend come to one of our banquets here in Utah, one of our sportsman banquets, and she says, "Hey, one of my dear friends is coming with me. She's got a little boy, and he's really sick, and I can't even remember the name of the disease he had, but his dream in life is to go on a Disney cruise. And she said, me and my mom have donated this print, and we would like you to sell this print in the auction, and we want to donate that money to that little boy. And we're like, yeah, we'll do that. I thought we'll do that. I'd probably get a few $100 for it, and it'll help him out. That'll be great. We had a congressman there, and I sold the print for like $200 or $300, and this congressman walks up and he handed me a box. He goes, "Hey, I was meaning to give this to you before to see if you could do something with it. This flag flew over the embassy in Iraq, and I wondered if you'd sell it." And he goes, "I want to sell it and donate the money to this little kid." And so we sold it, and it went up to, geez, 5,000 or 6,000 bucks pretty quick. And the mom, she didn't know what we were at first. She didn't know what we were up to, but we had her come up on stage while we sold this stuff to that little boy. And I hit $5,000, and one of the other guys that was there with me, kind of helping out, he goes, "Hey, ask him if he can get another one," because I still had two guys in at $5,000. I looked at the congressman. I said, "Can you give me another flag?" He goes, "Sure." I looked at the one guy. Says, "You want one if I sell this one to the other guy?" He goes, "Yep." And I says, "Got it, $10,000, just like that." And these people, to them, $10,000 just as well been a
Life
million.
changing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I turned around and looked at that mom, and she was white as a ghost and like starting to tip over, like she was fainting. And so me and her friend were up there with her. We grabbed her and held her up, and we helped her off the stage, and she just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. She goes, "I don't even know you people. I don't even know you people. Who are you? Why are you doing this for me?"
Yeah.
And so that one was really cool. And then this year at the Hunt Expo, we had some people donate. Well, it was one of our friends, one of our military friends, who had his leg amputated. A girl did a portrait of him, painted a picture of him, and it's called "The Eyes of War." And they take a picture of these guys
Oh
right up
yeah.
close, and then she does the deal of their eyes, right? And she paints a close up of their eyes. Yeah, I think it's on my Instagram. I'll have to go check. I
Yeah.
know it's on Janice. And I sold that thing, like, first time I sold it, I can't remember, it was 8 or 10,000 bucks, and they donated it back, and I sold it again, and they donated it back. And by the time we got done, we had raised that sportsman's organization that takes veterans hunting and gets them out in the outdoors, almost $70,000 off that. And it was people
Oh.
would buy it, and I couldn't get it to stick. People would buy it, and they just keep donating it back. And I was sicker than a dog. I had bronchitis. I was worried my voice was going to hold out. And they just kept giving it back to me and giving it back to me. And I'm like, "You have got to be kidding me." And at the end of that deal, I turned around, and Janice standing up there, she was the MC, and she's got big tears running down her eyes. And, the vets that are sitting there in the front watching, they got big tears. And I turned around and looked at Dom, the guy who the painting was done of. He was standing on stage with me holding it up. And man, he was just all grins from ear to ear. And so to
That's
see the
awesome.
generosity of people and there's quite a few of those experiences. But to see the generosity of good people, when you give good people the opportunity to donate to a great cause that really touches somebody, and they just step up and hit it out of the park, those are the ones that really, really stick with you.
Yeah. That's incredible, man. It really is. So, man, I wish that, I wish I shouldn't say. I wish we had something along the lines of that to auction off for you on Saturday, but I don't think we do. However, we do have a really cool, so what we've done in the past at this event is we've partnered up with BAM from Wishes for Warriors.
That's
And
who we sold. That's who we sold the
yep,
freaking painting for, was Wishes for Warriors. So yeah,
yep,
Bam, Bam, and I hope he listens to this and hopes he hears me say this. Bam's crazy. Bam's crazy, but we all love Bam because he is Bam,
oh.
and he does amazing things for the veterans.
You know what's crazy about Bam? And you just never know what he's gonna get into next.
You never
Like,
know what you're going to get out of Bam, man. But the thing is, he's just a big old teddy bear. He's got a heart of gold, and he's done so much good
yeah,
for these guys.
like the dude's a straight killer. Like, he
Oh yeah,
kills anything and everything. But then he's a gardener. Like, dude, and he spends So
Well,
much
now
time
he's
on his
into
garden.
baking bread. Have you seen his
Making
story the
bread,
last
yeah.
few days? Now
Oh,
he's into
yeah.
baking bread.
Uh-huh. And it's just like that's what I like most about him. You're not a one-trick pony. Like, you've got a lot going on here, dude, and it's cool. But so what we've done at this event in the past years is we've partnered up with BAM and Wishes for Warriors, and he brings in these veterans, and we gift them with a bow, fully set up, ready
Oh
to
yeah.
hunt bow, arrows, releases, everything. And then our board members will spend the day with Dallas, and Shad and Scott back in. They spend the day with these guys, teaching them everything there is to know about their bow, pulling it out of the box, how you going to sight it in, how what does shooting technique on a bow look like. And they don't know it, but the bow that they're working with all day long is actually their bow. And so at the end of the night, we gift them their bow. And man, dude, like, I didn't know how cool of a deal that was going to be until we did it. Like, I knew, like, oh, it's a feel good. We're working with veterans. But then when you see those veterans and they just melt when you say that's your bow, like, and then you hear them
Well,
talk and you hear them share, man, like, today I was the biggest release I've ever had. And now I get to take it home with me. Like, oh, dude, it was so cool. And so, we will partner with Bam again. He's bringing in some veterans, and they're gonna gift them some bows. And so, man, I'm really excited to see that again because it's just a really cool deal.
the that just gives me chills to hear you, tell those stories like that, because archery is it's fun for everybody. I mean, my dad got me out shooting. I had a little fiberglass plastic recurve when I was little, and I used to go shoot with my dad into the haystack in the backyard. And I outgrew that, and I never got another bow till I was in my 20s, and then Dallas and Kevin got me shooting. And I mean, it's so therapeutic to just go stand out there and do something repetitive. Gives you the opportunity to try to improve. I mean, it's good for you once you get your setup. It ain't like you're, burning through ammo that you can't afford. You just go get your arrow and shoot it again and shoot it again and
Yeah.
shoot it again. And you can do it with your family. You can do it with your buddies. And especially for veterans, to get them something to try, like you say, it's really new to some of them. To help get them into that world, especially seeing what archery has done for me and the people that it's brought into my life, and the amazing things it's helped me be part of it, that is so exciting. Knowing the doors that opens up, and Dallas and Shad, they're helping guys. I was that guy, 20 some years ago. I was that guy that Dallas was helping. And so that's just so cool. And I got to say, man, I love that, the direction that Pope and Young's headed. I'm so excited to see what we're doing, these kind of events, getting involved with the veterans, getting the youth involved, finding ways to get the youth involved, because some of us are getting pretty long in the tooth. And if we don't have somebody coming up behind us to carry the torch, we're in trouble. So I love this. I love the whole idea, the whole premise of the Bow Hunter Bash, and bring your families, bring your kids, introduce them to archery, all these great people, the veterans and that. It's just awesome. I can't wait. I am so excited to be part of it this year.
Yeah, we missed you last year, man. Didn't you had some stuff going on, and of course this time of year is just, busy season for you. It's auction season. So we waited a little too long to get you on the book. So I'm excited to have you
Well, I'm
back this
glad the
year, man.
schedule. Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I'm really glad the schedule worked out. And, we got convention coming up. Isn't that next year?
Yeah,
Aren't
20
we getting ready for,
2025.
yeah, going to be in Arizona. Is that right?
Yep. Glendale, Arizona. And
Oh
we're
man.
excited
Yeah.
because you're not only doing the auctions for us, but Jana is going to lead our women's campfire session. So,
Oh yeah.
excited for Jana to be able to do that. That's going to be just really cool. But yeah, we've got a lot of exciting things going on. We're excited about the future here at Pope and Young, and you know everything we've got going on, and just kind of the new direction, and not new direction, but new vision casting, if you will. That
Yeah,
sounds kind of a cheesy way to say it, but you know, the vision and the mission is the same. Protect bow hunting, protect our passion for bow hunting. You know, we just wanted to cast kind of a new vision for it, and help to reach the younger crowd, help get new bow hunters involved. So yeah, we're excited, and we're excited to have you join us not only for the bow hunter bash, but like you said, in Glendale for the 2025 convention as well.
it's going to be awesome. And you know, I I think so much of so many people that are involved with Pope and Young. You know, and people think, you know, if I'm going to go get involved with an organization, I have to line up with everything that they believe 100%, or, you know, I might think different about this or about that. And I don't know if I fit. Nah, don't let that get in your way. You know, if you have a different view on something than an organization, that does not at all mean you can't go get involved. Or maybe you're not the biggest bow hunter. Maybe you're, you know, a part-time bow hunter. It's not your main focus. That's okay. Come get involved. You're going to love it.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to love it. If we all agree on everything all the time, somebody ain't paying attention and somebody ain't doing their job. And,
Yeah.
you know, come get involved, make your voice heard, get involved. You're going to love it. You're going to meet some of the greatest people that, you know, that you've ever met. Like I said, I've met the most important people in my life outside of my family. I met because of archery. I met because of bow hunting. And so, yeah, it's important to me. And I appreciate everything Pope and Young's done. I really appreciate the direction, you know, that the organization's headed, and, you know, just super excited about it. Glad to be part of it, and really appreciate all the work you guys are putting in.
Absolutely. So, guys, again, if you're anywhere near the Ogden area, come join us. Come join John. A lot of our partners will be there. We're gonna have a good, fun night. If you can't be there, we've got some incredible items for you to bid on. We've got antelope hunts. We've got water buffalo hunts. We've got coos deer hunts with some incredible outfitters. We got some of our top outfitters donating for this event. We've got sandhill crane hunts, which I might have to get my bid in on that. Red stag. We've got bow fishing trips in Florida. We've got vacation packages. We've got blacktail hunts. We've got dove hunts in Argentina. We've got King's camo packages worth over $1,500. We've got it's going to be a fun night. We've got a lot of stuff. So whether you're looking for your next big hunt, or whether you're just looking to get a, you know, re-up on some camo and some hunting gear, we're going to have something for you. So make sure and get registered to bid online. But guys, thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you this Saturday, April the 6th.
All right.